Hola, yo soy Claudia Zaragoza.
Yo soy Beba Guzmán y este es Proyecto XX, en donde hablamos de deporte femenil
y de fisiología femenina.
¿Qué es esto, Clau? Porque esto no es la segunda temporada,
No.
esto no es el episodio 7.
No. No estamos en nuestro setting, que normalmente estamos, pero ¿qué es? ¿Una extensión de la primera temporada? ¿Un bonus track?
¿Un encore? Lo que sea, esto es la mejor sorpresa que ustedes se pueden imaginar.
Es un regalo que les tenemos porque tenemos la gran oportunidad de entrevistar a alguien a la que admiramos muchísimo y que los astros se alinearon. Entonces, la tenemos aquí para hacerle unas grandes preguntas para que ustedes disfruten de todas sus respuestas.
Así que, por si no lo han adivinado ya cómo estamos vestidas, bienvenidos, bienvenidas, bienvenides a la entrevista con Kathrine Switzer.
Pero antes que nada, quiero agradecer a Microbiotfit por esta oportunidad y por traer a Kathrine Switzer aquí con nosotros. Así que vámonos.
This is Proyecto XX.
Well, Kathrine, welcome to Proyecto XX. We're so excited to have you here. I'm especially moved because my running community is named 261, and that's because of you. So this is a privilege, but more than that, it's a dream come true.
Thank you very much. I'm delighted to be here and meet both of you.
No, thank you so much for being here, Kathrine. Thank you for existing. Thank you for your bravery. And before we start with the interview, I know that Beba wants to read some words from the 261 community. So
Fantastic.
Here we go.
Okay, I'll start reading this letter for you from the 261 community in Mexico. So often we wonder, what would our present look like if women like you had never existed? What would the story of women in running be if not for people like you who refused to believe the tale we were told to accept? Your courage and bold spirit rewrote the story of women runners forever. And we want you to know, every time we run together, we are paying tribute to your fight. A fight that opened doors, that dared to dream of something freer and something greater. As women who move, strive, and persist, we also carry a deep responsibility to keep clearing the path so others may run it too. And you have been the spark, the fire behind that journey. Because of you, we know now women have no limits. And as you so powerfully say, we are fearless.
Oh, that is an amazing, beautiful letter.
No, it's just...
No, it's amazing, amazing.
It was important for us to tell you this.
Thank you. I'm really overwhelmed by it, and I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. But I think another thing that's really important for everybody to know is that I made it very intentional not to have children. And I knew what I really needed to do was give these women the opportunity just to believe in themselves, just to take that first step. And I knew I couldn't do that if I had children of my own. But now, every time I see a woman running, I think of her as my daughter. So if you would take this message back to that 261 community and tell them that it's a privilege to hear from them and hear these words, and that I consider every one of them my daughter. And I want them, in their lives, to pass it on to their real daughters and to every other girl and woman out there.
Thank you very much. We're so honored.
I don't want to cry. Thank you. Thank you.
But I sincerely believe that.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Well, how can we top that? But
Well, let's go.
Well, we're Kathrine Switzer.
Go get a margarita.
daughters, I can't believe that. I totally accept. Well, I want to start with this first question, Kathrine. What was going through your mind, and do you think that the most iconic photo ever in women's sports, and that's what I believe, would be that when you woke up that morning, fearless, going to run that Boston Marathon? Would you think everything would happen like this way? Did it, or what happened through your mind?
Claudia, never in a million years could I have imagined it. And even then, years later, when I knew that everybody knew about the picture and it was in magazines and they drag it out every year in April, that it would gain such momentum and that it would be like such an iconic photo. Interestingly enough, just 2 weeks ago, I had a big interview with Getty Images, and they wanted to talk about how does that picture make me feel, and how did it come about, and what the ramifications of it are. And I said, the ramifications are, a social revolution that we could never have imagined at the time, that always believed in women's opportunities, but the revolution has happened so quickly and it's so powerful. The number of women in North America are outrunning the number of men, that numbering them. And for instance, just this year in the New York City Marathon, there were 55,000 people in the race. And for the first time ever, women outran the men. And there were, 5,000 more women in that race than men. And imagine this. So we say, oh, well, that's a big athletic revolution. No, it's more than that. It's a social revolution, because these are women whose mothers didn't even believe that they could accomplish anything. And these are their daughters. And some of them are still the mothers, which are amazing. And the other thing that I love saying is that it's more than a social revolution, more than an athletic revolution. It's a financial revolution. Because in 1974, when I won the New York City Marathon, we were not allowed to have our own credit cards until that year.
Wow.
Up to then, daddy had to sign or your husband had to sign for you. But in 1974, we got to carry our own credit card. And so I said, there are 27,000 women running the New York City Marathon. You can bet your bippy they all have a credit card, and they're spending millions and millions of dollars. A girlfriend of mine just went to Antarctica. The trip she said it was only $11,000. $11,000! It's unimaginable that women have that kind of disposable income. Now, many women who are listening now don't have any income. I know are very, very deprived. But I'm saying that we are arriving in a very big way, more than we ever could have imagined.
We are.
5 years ago.
We are.
We needed that picture for that
Exactly.
Yeah,
revolution.
Exactly.
The other thing I want to say about that picture is you look at the face of, and my face is not on those, okay? But you look at the photograph and you look at the face of that. She's a girl. I mean, I was only 20 years old. And all of this was happening and falling down on me at once. And the most important thing, and I'm going to be talking about this tomorrow. I'm here for the Microbiotic Fit Runner's Day, and I'm honored to be their speaker. And I'm going to be talking about how important it is to make a decision at the time of stress that you may not otherwise be able to make. But running gives you courage. It gives you fearlessness. And so when that official attacked me, I made the decision to finish the race, no matter what. No matter what, I was going to finish the race on my hands and my knees if I have to, because I knew that nobody believed in women, and somebody had to show, no matter what, that they had the courage to finish, to do it, and not be discouraged.
And we're always grateful about that. We're grateful about you making that choice.
Yeah, thank you.
Every day, and we honor it every day.
But what I'm saying is a girl who was 19 and just turned 20 made the decision, and I wouldn't have been able to make it unless I had been a runner.
Exactly.
See, I had done the training. And so when you run, you not only become empowered, you actually become very, very strong and powerful.
Yeah, better self-esteem.
Yeah.
And Kathrine, when you ran Boston for the first time in 67, it was a personal challenge. It was you against you. I think that was your purpose. Like, I can do a marathon. How did that personal challenge transformed into a mission of opening doors to more women?
Oh, it's because it was like a light bulb going on. And throughout the race, these different light bulbs that are going on. For instance, I was really angry at the official, okay? And then, you can't stay angry and run a marathon. And over Heartbreak Hill, which is about 32 Ks, and you're on fumes at that point. I said, oh my God, it's not his fault. He's a product of his time. He doesn't know better.
Exactly.
And he's an overworked race director, and he was trying to get a race off on time, and he thought I was a clown. So I said, okay, I'll forgive him. It's okay. We'll figure this out later. And then I went on, but I said, but where are the women? I got really angry. I said, where are these women? Why aren't they out here? Why aren't they, doing something exciting and for themselves and proving their strength? And then I thought, oh my God, you're so stupid. You're so stupid. They don't have the opportunity. They'd never been given the opportunity, like my dad and mom really encouraged me, and people throughout, my schooling encouraged me, and one guy in particular, my coach, Arnie Briggs, encouraged me. And I thought, They just need the opportunity. And I didn't know what it looked like. But by the time I finished the race, I came to two conclusions. One, I wanted to become a really better athlete. I had to become a good one because I wasn't going to convince people like the race director unless I was a real athlete. Yes. And the second thing was somehow I was going to change the system for women. I didn't know what it looked like. But I knew it was a big job.
It was.
But I knew I was going to somehow do that. And it became a career, which is so amazing. I mean, we could talk all day about how that happened. But
And
just
we're
making
still-
that decision.
Yes. Actually, that brings me to the another question, Kathrine. What would you think it would happen if you didn't run that day? Right now, in the present, what would the impact be if you weren't?
Claudia, I'm a believer that nature abhors a vacuum, that somebody would have stepped in. There were a number of women who were very active runners who were activists also. One way or the other, I think probably it would have happened.
Somebody
would it have happened as quickly as it happened? No. For sure not. Because my ultimate idea was to create opportunities in different countries, and I got a sponsor for that, and I organized like 400 races in 27 countries for over 1 million women, and worked with the IOC and the IAAF to change the rules and get the women's marathon in the Olympic Games. Yes. Now that event in 1984 opened the eyes of the entire world. You know why? Because it was on television. You know, everybody knows how far 26.2 or 42.2 kilometers are. They know it's far. And so it really resonated. They're saying, oh my God, these women are running 42.2 kilometers.
They can do that.
Because and they were watching it. Like even in poor places, where they'd only ridden a bike or a donkey over the distance, they all knew it was a long way.
How did you make that happen?
Oh, well, okay.
Well, I mean, that had to be another iconic movement from your.
Well, I hope it's going to be
under the
a movie,
But
that's the sum and substance really of my book. I wrote Marathon Woman, my autobiography, and the whole second half of it is about that. Because for me, it's so exciting. I worked as a journalist. I studied journalism, and I knew that sponsorship was very, very important, and because it can pay for things that need to happen. And so I went to Avon Cosmetics, which at the time was the world's largest cosmetics company. And every country in the world knows Avon. It's still going on. I mean, we were in 125 countries. And I told them if they created a women's only race and made it really totally welcoming to women and feminine, makeup is feminine. And we had a lot of flowers and nice things to eat and really well organized, that we could put on these events in all these different countries, and it'd be a great advertising and marketing campaign for them. And they'd get great publicity. We had no idea, but the publicity was huge. It was so huge that they could stop their advertising campaigns in some countries because they already had such great publicity. They're getting headlines in newspapers. And everybody said, all the federations said to me, the women won't come. And they came by their thousands. And they came in their burqas, and they came in their bound feet in Japan, and they came everywhere. Because for once, they had the opportunity to own the streets, and it was for them. And it changed everything. It was amazing. Well, anyway, so finally we had the number of countries. The International Olympic Committee was demanding 24 countries and 3 continents to participate in the Olympic Games. And I had 27 countries and 5 continents. So a special meeting, and for the International Olympic Committee, they voted the women's marathon in 1981 for the 1984 Games. And I mean, who could forget those games?
No.
Fantastic.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah.
And Kathy, we were just telling us about how the New York Marathon, now we have more women participation in some editions. And so maybe one should imagine, why should we keep on pushing? Women can run now. There's people that maybe now they think that, they're well represented, or, now it's enough. Why? But you're here.
Still pushing.
Still pushing.
Yeah. And why?
Having this conversation. It's all about still representing.
Yes.
Why is that?
Well, I'll tell you why. It's because that's a great thing that we have as many women running as we have running. But there are millions and millions of women who have no opportunities whatsoever for an education, to drive a car, to even get out of the house, to choose their own husbands. I'm sorry, they have nothing. And right now, it's really looking a little grim around the world, what's happening for women. And they're always on the short end of the stick. So they can't make those decisions if they have no education or no opportunity to do it. And it's interesting that you say, why now? Actually, I had this feeling as I came out of the Olympic Stadium after I was doing the television commentary in 1984. And, I was high as a kite thinking, okay, we did it, we finally did it. And then I got really kind of depressed. It was kind of a postpartum depression. We had the baby, now what? Oh my God.
We're going to do it.
Yeah, oh my God. And then I thought, that's really great for those women who could train and to be in the Olympic Games and their countries would send them. What about all those women who were, under a burqa or had no education or were poor? And, you think that, okay, there's somebody else. No, she could be your next door neighbor.
Yeah,
you see, you don't know what's going on in there. And so you need to create something that reaches out and says, okay, I'm going to give you a safe space. I'm going to give you a welcome and a non-judgmental atmosphere. And I didn't create 261 in a way, it created itself. What happened is that suddenly, this is really weird. This is the only weird thing in this conversation. But suddenly I began receiving emails and letters from people all over the world saying 261, my bib number from the Boston Marathon, makes me feel fearless. What they meant was the picture made them feel fearless, but the 261 was what resonated. And so they said, tomorrow I'm running my first marathon. I have bib number 5,852 on my front, but on my back, I'm wearing 261. And then they were inking it on their wrists and here. And then they started sending me pictures of their tattoos. I got the creeps, I didn't know what that meant. Yeah. So I talked to some girlfriends of mine and I said, listen, I've got to trademark it. So I did, because if I don't, Nike's going to grab it. So anyway, I trademarked it. And my friend said, look, I said, I can't start another business. I'm too old, right? I'm 62 years old. I can't do this. And they said, no, we'll start a nonprofit. And so we started 261 Fearless Inc., a 501c3 nonprofit organization headquartered in the US, also headquartered in Austria, and decided we were going to develop a really good women's-centric coaching system with a master coach and local coaches and create local meet runs, clubs in different communities, free, but come join us. And show you how to run in a safe space. You have a friend. And it's like, hey, go to your next door neighbor. Hey, come run with me, come walk with me. Oh, I can't, I'm too old, I'm too fat. You hear it all the time.
Yeah.
No, just come on.
Running is so difficult.
We're just going to be out there exercising, having fun. We'll get a coffee, whatever. And some people just need the friend in the moment.
Totally agree.
Totally open.
I mean, that's our religion. Thinking about that is our religion.
Exactly.
So we were really excited. The organization is going very, very well, and we're in 15 countries around the world. And we're training some really, really terrific coaches as well.
Well, talking about training the women physiology, I heard in an interview that your coach, Briggs, gave you a special pep talk before. I don't know what's before, 1 week before, but he told you that women possess a special power and endurance.
Oh, you got the story all wrong.
All right.
We won't confuse our audience.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay.
We won't confuse.
No.
Please tell us.
Okay,
Please tell
here
us.
we
I'm
go.
dying to know the real thing.
My coach was a simple man. He was a postman.
Yes.
Cartman. Correos. Sí.
What's it called in
Postman?
A mailman.
Mailman.
Delivers the mail.
Yeah,
Okay,
correo. That's the mail.
Yeah, correro. Okay. Anyway, so he was not a big person. You know what I mean? He was a working person, but he lived for running because running had made him feel so empowered. And he was a good runner. But when I met him, he was 50. He was injured. He said, "Nah, no, not what I was. I can't run anymore." But he saw how slow I was, and so he sort of adopted me. And then we'd run together a little every day, and he would tell me about his glory days as a runner. And it was always about the Boston Marathon, because he had run it 15 times, and he was a champion, 10th. Wow. He finished 10th place. He was top 10. And he still held a record for upstate New York. And he was so proud of his glory these days. And I had heard that a couple of women had run marathons in past history. Yeah. And that also, even in Boston, a woman in 1966 jumped out of the bushes and ran. Wow. And so we were Roberta Gibb. Yeah, and so I was talking to Arnie and saying, I heard a woman had run the Boston Marathon last year. And he said, no, that's not true. And I said, yes, it's true. And he said, no, it's not. I said, well, look, it was in all the magazines and newspapers. It's true. He said, no, it's not true. And I said, I know guys who ran with her. It's true. And he said, no dame ever ran no marathon. And I said, what? And I said, Arnie, you got to believe some woman someplace can do it. Come on. And he said, I don't believe any woman could ever do it. He said, I believe you could do it if any woman could, but I don't believe any woman anywhere could run a marathon. And I said, Arnie, you're in deep trouble. You've got to say a woman can run a marathon. And he said, I don't believe it. And I said, I know I could do it. And he said, I'll tell you what, you show me that you can run a marathon distance, I'll be the first person to take you to Boston. I said, yippee, I've got a coach. I got to go. And we trained so hard. And the day came that we were going to run, 42.2 kilometers. I was really psyched, ready to go. And off we went, and we were nice and slow, and we did it. And now we're coming into the finish, okay? And he said, I don't believe this. You look great. You absolutely look great. I said, I feel pretty good. I don't think we measured this right. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I think it's really short. I think we need another 8Ks. And he said, can you do another 8Ks? I said, well, sure. I feel great, don't you? And he goes, all right. Anyway, so now we're doing the 8K. The last K, he starts going all over the road, right? The eyes are gone. And I said, come on, Arnie, you're right. Come on, Arnie, we can do this. And I pulled him along like this, and he's shouting at cars. And anyway, and then we crossed the finish line, and I threw my arms around. We did it. We're going to Boston. And he fainted. And when
I didn't know this story.
Wow. And when he came to, he looked up at me and he said, women have hidden potential in endurance and stamina. And that's when I clicked, and I said, all the men on the team never come and run with me if we run more than 20 Ks. They all say, you're a crazy person. And it's because that's when I catch up with them. You see, I can keep up with them after 20 Ks. I'm not fast, but I can go forever. And so I began thinking about this, and then I began reading about it, that women already were swimming the English Channel and setting records, and they had body fat, and that they were better at climbing in the Arctic and things, So, and it had to do with this thing called body fat. So I'm never worried about anybody, especially myself, having any fat. So a little fat, that's okay. But the other thing, though, is it's much more advanced than that. What we're learning about women's capability is incredible. And finally, we're getting really, really good books about it, like Stacy Sims's book, Roar.
She's my mentor.
Yeah, she's terrific. And she explains it to us, because she herself, being a triathlete, a super triathlete, experienced all these different things about our cyclical nature, about our body fat, about our different ways we absorb nutrients. All these things have been very, very fascinating. But we're really just in the beginning of understanding what our unique capabilities are. And I think that they're going to be huge. Women are already running all the big ultra races.
Yeah. Ultra races, yes.
Yeah. And breastfeeding along the way.
Like Sophie Campbell.
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, totally.
Yes. So I think the future is extremely bright and extremely exciting. And the other thing is, just quickly, is that what has happened because of women's running and the endurance, the exploration that we have discovered, and that's a running thing that we discovered, okay, is that's translating to other sports. I mean, even women's football, soccer. Yeah. Okay, so we're helping professional women athletes too, because we're understanding their natures and how they're going to play the game. They're not going to play it as hard and fast as the men, no, okay, but they're going to play a different kind of game.
We have to play it our way.
Yeah, well, so it's like
Our physiological way.
so yeah, and so let me give you one more example that's very vivid. I was around. Billie Jean King is a very good friend of mine.
Oh, wow.
Okay, yeah. Oh, she is. She is. She is.
No, yeah.
She really taught me a lot about it. You know, I'm a mediator. She's a hitter, right? Anyway, I was around when she started women's professional tennis, and demanded money, right? And people said, who's going to pay to watch women's tennis? And of course, I say, should we ask Serena Williams?
Yeah, exactly.
So what's happening, and our discoveries are going to be opening up women's sports in every way, and it's very, very exciting.
I totally agree. Actually, Stacy was one of my mentors, and when I first heard the phrase she coined, "Women are not small men,"
Yes.
it blew my mind.
Yes.
And after that, I became this person telling all of my students or all of my athletes, like, get empowered with your physiology. We really have special powers. We just have to navigate differently.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I've never met her. Actually, she's a Kiwi. You know, I lived in New Zealand half the time. So
yeah, she lives there, actually.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. So I'm a New Zealand citizen.
James, you have an invitation with
Yeah. You can imagine. It's not exactly a big country, but I'll get together with.
Kathrine, everybody remembers Jacques Semple as like the bad guy of the iconic moment. He was the one who wanted to put you out of the race. But after what you did, you changed Jacques Semple's mindset. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And do you think you changed other men's mindset after what you did?
Yeah, I think so. I think I definitely changed Jock, and I think I changed a lot of other men. First of all, I want to say that almost all of the men in the Boston Marathon that year were wonderful to me.
Yeah, they were supporting you, right?
Yeah, they were terrific. They were terrific. And you know, that's the way runners are. We don't care what your gender is. You know, we don't care how much money you make. We don't, you know, if there's any kind of credential, it's usually your time. But basically, we respect you for getting out and doing it. And so they didn't care that I was a woman. In fact, most of them caught up with me and they'd run with me for a while. So give me some tips. I'm trying to get my wife to run, or girlfriend, you know. So, you know, they were very, very supportive. Okay, but Jock, you know, as I told you, I was very angry with him. I could have strangled him myself, right? Okay, until about 30 Ks, and then I realized it wasn't his fault. And you know, he was raised in the slums of Glasgow, and went steerage to America, and had to seek his own thing. And the only thing that he had on his side is he could hit people, you know. And so he was very, very abrasive. But running was his great love, and he didn't want me there because he didn't want his great love destroyed in any way, okay, or messed with, or anybody not taking it seriously. He didn't believe I was serious. My Arnie, when he was attacking me, Arnie was screaming at him, my coach, leave her alone. She's okay. I've trained her. She's real. Leave her alone. And he smacked Arnie. But anyway, so I forgave him then. And then he doubled down all the time. For instance, the next day, when the newspapers called me, they said, what are you going to do about Jacques Semple? Are you going to sue him? I said, no. You know, he's tired. He's an overworked guy. It's okay. You know, I forgive him. We'll figure it out. He called a press conference and he said, she ran it in 4 hours and 20 minutes. I could walk it that fast. You know? Then he and his colleagues said, if that woman were my daughter, I'd spank her. Oh, my mother went crazy, you know. And so, I mean, these are things you could never say in a million years now. Yeah. But anyway, I laughed. People said, do you believe he said this? And I just laughed. And I said, yeah, you know, he's angry. He'll get over it, you know. And finally, I kept humoring him. And I kept showing up at races. At every Boston Marathon, I got a half hour faster. You know, and then when I got down to like 3 hours, he was beginning to take me seriously, right? Taking me very seriously. In 1973, he came up to me on the starting line, and he was pushing all the men back and yelling at them and get back, you know, you shouldn't be here. Blah, blah, blah. And I was standing there, and I was going, and he came over to me, and I went, because I thought he was going to hit me or something. And he put his arm around me and turned me to the TV cameras, put a big kiss on my cheek, and he said, it's a Scots accent, okay? I'll try it.
Okay.
come on, lass, let's get a bit of notoriety. Let's get a bit of notoriety. And the New York Times published that photo the next day and said it was the end of an era because he finally is making up to Kathrine Switzer. But then, you know, he still harbored anger. When I finished second in Boston with the 2:51, which is a really good performance in 1975. Okay, my trophy was broken in the box, and he was really embarrassed about it. And he handed me the trophy, and he said, "Look, I'm sorry it's broken. You know, send it back, and we'll repair it." But he said, "But I've been mad at you for years. You deserve a broken trophy." I've kept it broken because it reminds me of him.
He was such a
case.
character.
He was a hard case.
Yeah, I know. But what I love about the story about Jacques Semple and you is even though he was angry, you changed his mindset.
Yeah, I did.
And that is so important.
Yes.
Because you said it at first in this interview, he didn't know better. But sometimes we need to do different things.
Yeah.
So other men can, you know, change the way they see a lot of things.
Yeah. Yeah. I went to see him just a few hours before he died. It was very important for me to make that goodbye. And everybody said, what were his last words to you? And he said, "I made you famous, lass."
Wow.
Chuck was always the center of the story. I loved it. I had to laugh. I went out of the hospital crying, but I was laughing so hard.
Well, Kathrine, and I wanted to know right now, for every woman who fell in love with running and they arrived to a certain time of their life, and they want to still run, but sometimes either business, age, or whatever kind of stops you, but you are so in love that you want to keep on running every single day. I want to for you to share to us, what is your training schedule right now? What are you doing? How are you training? I would love to know.
Okay, today is a particularly bad day for you to ask me that question because I'm suffering a bit of vertigo because I took a very hard fall 2 years ago, which created an inner ear disturbance. But mostly it's corrected right now. It's probably from all the flights. You're a little bit dizzy, but actually I had this kind of breakthrough at about. Well, no, I've run all my life. Okay, all the time. It's sometimes faster, sometimes slower, whatever. But marathon training, I decided I would do the Boston Marathon again for my 50th anniversary. Yes. I ran very well, but I mean, I stopped 13 times, so the time wasn't great. But I was totally in control. And I trained very hard for it. But then I continued to train, and then I began getting faster in the shorter distances that I hadn't done in a long time. So basically, I mean, I always win my age group, and I can still, at 78, I ran a 27 minutes 5K.
Wow.
And a 57:30 10K. So I'm pleased with it. I really am very, very pleased with that. And I hope I can get it back. I hope the vertigo doesn't stop me from that. But yes, so how do I train? I will say I train probably, 6 days a week. I mean, there's always one day that's off because you're busy. I try to run easy one day and a little bit harder the next day. I incorporate one long run a week, and a long run for me now is like an hour and a half.
Okay, it is a long one.
Yeah, a lot about that. But then I can gear up to a really longer if I want to, like if I want to get back to doing a half marathon or something. But then one day a week, there's either on the road, but there's a nice, in New Zealand in particular, and there's a rail trail in where I live in New York. But I do intervals. So especially 800 repeats.
Okay.
That's
those are hard intervals.
Well, they are designed to work the wind and work the speed both, and the strength. So yeah. So and I try to do those at what I would think would be the pace I'm looking for in the next race.
In competition. Mm-hmm. And do you strength train?
Some small weights, but I don't go to a gym. I have everything at home, but it's not a gym at home. It's just stuffed under the sofa. So just pull out the barbells, lots of planks, lots of sit-ups, lots of stretching, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Well, we have to wrap it up, but I'll just say this last question.
Wait, let me say one thing.
Sure.
You're never too old to start.
Thank you.
That's what we want to hear.
Never too old to start.
Never.
I mean, the human body always wants to get better, and it will always improve. I mean, you start slowly, very, very gradually, but the more you work the body, the more it will respond.
Okay.
So,
Thanks for that.
yeah, thank you.
Ya escucharon, ¿eh? This last question, Kathrine. Why do you think it is still dangerous for women to run outdoors? In what is our role? Or what do you believe we should be doing to prevent these painful situations?
It is a very painful situation. Yeah. And it's not getting better. And the reason it's not getting better, I'm happy to say, is a good reason, which is there's so many more of us. But it makes us more vulnerable and more available, if you see what I mean. So look, I mean, there's certain you can do everything right. A girlfriend of mine, not a girlfriend, but of her sister, did everything right. She took a self-defense course. She had her emergency thing on. She had a beeper. She had some spray, and she had her phone and emergency and everything, and she still got killed. You know, I mean, and it was in a very public place. So, and the guy had ultimately he had a gun. Okay. So what I'm saying is, how can we do? We have to address this, and you can say, look, we just need to educate the public more. But how do we educate the public more? I'm sorry, this is a very big negative question that I'm really not really good on, and I'm trying to figure it out.
It's just that's the thing. We don't know either.
Yeah. We don't know
but
either.
I think we can do something together.
Okay, well,
so
we can run
know?
as a group. That's another thing.
Okay.
But then that takes the joy away from, sometimes just going out and being at peace with the world and trying to figure out your problems. But maybe always having a running buddy. Maybe that's the answer.
Yeah. Well, Kathrine,
for now,
you.
we'll figure it out.
I know.
No,
we'll
I want
figure
to
it out.
have homework.
Yeah.
Optimistic.
We'll have
No,
the
we'll figure it out. And men who want to be our allies. There are plenty of men who are in a women's race. He said, I'm in a women's race because I'm an ally. I said, well, I don't need you in the race to be my ally. I need you at 5 o'clock in the morning when you start.
Exactly.
Yeah. But so that's when we need to help the guys help us some more. So that would be good.
Well, Kathrine, thank you very much. This is a dream for us. We're still like, are we dreaming? We're so happy to have you here. We love having these conversations with you. We love to meet you, and thank you for the space. Thank you for, for
your words.
Yeah, it's so easy to talk to you.
Thank you.
And mostly thank you for that 67 Boston Marathon.
You're welcome. And thank you both. Thank you both for everything you're doing for women and the belief you have in running and the power of this simple thing of putting one foot in front of the other and how it can change our lives so amazingly.
Thank you.
And now we know we are your daughters, so thank you. Yes.
No. Pues muchas gracias. Gracias por acompañarnos en esta entrevista. Gracias a Microbiot Fit por esta oportunidad, de verdad. Muy, muy importante para nosotras. Y pues aquí está Kathrine Switzer.
No lo podemos creer. Y queremos compartir esto con ustedes. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.